and welcome to another tag. This is the Anything But Books tag, which I haven't been specifically tagged, but I saw a couple of booktubers who I will post links to by way of thanks. I can't tag them because they've already done it. One is Dutch Girl Reads, and the other was Alicia Bissett. Both very interesting responses to this. It seems an ideal tag because it's not about books. It's maybe rounds us out a bit. You know, what else we do in our lives, if anything. So here we go. On to the first question. Name a cartoon or a cartoonist I love. For me, it's the Seth MacFarlane twin cartoons series, Family Guy and American Dad. I just think they really push the boundaries of what you could get away with. You know, if it was live actors, you could never say those things on TV. But Farland manages to get them by the studios, which is amazing. And I think Roger, the character Roger in American Dad, who's an alien, is just fantastic. He's just so self-obsessed and self-involved, and it, to me, is the great source of humour in the show. My sons are huge fans of South Park, and we're forever having ding-dong debates where they tear down Seth MacFarlane and posit South Park, whereas I go the other way. Although as a family, for my wife's 50th birthday, I treated everyone to the Book of Mormon, the stage musical, and we all enjoyed that mightily, which is quite an achievement because I don't like musicals. Okay, question 2. Favourite song right now? I don't have any. I don't like the lamentable state of music that we're currently in. And please note that I worked for 19 years in the music trade, from 88 to 97, or what was it, about 2007. I'm very particular about my music. But it also strikes me that most people's musical tastes are sort of frozen in time from when they were adolescents. They might have been going clubbing and stuff. And I actually wrote I was writing a novella about sort of growing up male, and there was a section on how our music tastes are sort of frozen in time. And even though that story is completed, I did in the end edit. Took that section out. It's not in there, but it's something I do actually feel that I know my music tastes pretty much frozen in time, and in fact that sort of impinges back on one of the questions to come in this. So I'm afraid no current contemporary music song at all. Question 3. What could you do for hours that isn't reading? I thought long and hard about this, and there's only one thing I do for hours that isn't reading, and that's writing. So it is still to do with books, really, as an author. But it is the only thing I can think of that I devote a lot of time to voluntarily. To such an extent, when you're in a sort of in the writing zone, you get in such a state that you resent having to take breaks for food and toilet breaks and things like that. It's like, no, I want to be this sort of autonomous human being, beyond biology, who can just keep writing and writing, forever. But of course, unfortunately, that can't be. Question 4: what do you love to do that your followers might be surprised by? I no longer actually do this, but I did it for 4 years off and on, and that was coach my twin boys' soccer team, which I have to say, sort of, taking care of the squad of 16, 18 boys, whatever it was, and making sure they all feel involved, they're all getting playing time. If their confidence is down, you've got to take them aside and try and boost it and all of that. It's the hardest, way harder than anything to do with books and publishing. Whatever the disappointments and setbacks in that are nothing compared to, making sure sort of 14-year-olds are happy and enjoying what should be for them a leisure pursuit. So I don't know, that might surprise you. I don't miss it, I have to say. And as they grew older, you could see it's going to get a lot harder as they got real teenage attitudes. So I kind of got out at the right time. Okay, question 6. What is your favourite unnecessary thing to learn about? Well, this one is easy for me because I have always set myself targets of learning lists of things, useless lists of things, to keep my mind limber, or now that I'm in my 50s, maybe to stave off Alzheimer's, or possibly plummet me closer to it. Anyway, but to give you an example, list of Shakespeare, all Shakespeare's plays, list of the 50 states of the US, list of the 105 as was chemical elements in the periodic table. I know it's now up to about 122, but when I learnt it was at 105. Bridges over the River Thames. Racetracks in the UK. Now, I hate horse racing and everything to do with it. I grew up the son of a compulsive gambler, so I have a deep, deep loathing of gambling and horse racing. And yet, I learned the names of all the 60 tracks that are in the UK. That's part of this useless list thing that I do. And recently, I've started doing it when I go to bed to sort of, I don't know why, it's almost like a sort of superstition or a part of the ritual I have to do before trying to go to sleep. I am an insomniac for many, many years, and that doesn't have, it's crazy to be sort of keeping your brain active by sort of going through these lists, but I can't get out of the habit at the moment, which is a bit worrying. Anyway, what is something unusual you know how to do? Okay, well, this also relates to insomnia, and that often I have ideas come to me at night, because what happens is, you're busy during the day at work, and there's lots of things you want to be doing and you can't. In my case, it's mainly writing, but I can't, I have a paid job to do with responsibilities. So, and then I come home and there's like cooking for the family or sorting out, some issue with the kids or, whatever. So it's not until you actually lie down in your bed with the intention of going to sleep that all of that stuff falls away, and into that void your brain goes, okay, here's a space now, finally, I've been cooking these ideas in your subconscious all day, and now you're going to listen. So often I get lots of my writing, not just ideas, but actual, chunks of dialogue, not stuff that I've thought about consciously, but just it comes out. And I'm lying in bed, and years ago I would get up and write them down, which was fatal, because it would just postpone any chance of falling asleep, because you wrote them down and then more ideas sparked off that. You may as well be sat in the room doing the writing. But what I've developed as a technique over the years is I think of a key word with each thing that I have to remember. It can be, a name, a verb, whatever. And I'll recite it a couple of times in my head. And then I'll count how many of these key words there are that I need to remember when I get up in the morning. Let's say it's 6 things. So I will lie on my pillow and tap it 6 times and remember that when I wake up in the morning, I have 6 of these things to recall. And more often than not, I will get 5 or 6 of them. I will recall them. To such an extent, I've written whole flash fictions, which are 1,000-word stories, this way. And I remember one I wrote, and I had my writers' club that evening, and I'd composed a story I wanted to read at the club, and I'd left it at home. I'd forgotten it, but because of the way I'd created it and remembered it overnight so that I woke up and was able to write it all down, I basically recited it off pat, with no notes or anything, to the meeting, and I think I probably got about 95% of the whole story out. So it's an odd talent, but it's a very useful one. But it's come at some cost. It's come at many, many years of insomnia. I think I got the numbering wrong with this, but anyway, name something you made in the last year and show it if you can. Okay, well, I don't make things with my hands. I'm completely useless. My son is dyspraxic, and probably both me and my wife are dyspraxic, but when we were growing up, no one called it that. No one knew what it was. So I was thrown out of art class at school because when I was painting, what I didn't realise was as I sort of dipped the paintbrush in the water to clear it for another colour paint, when I took it out, I was sort of splashing paint droplets, albeit watered down ones, on the wall. And my teacher spotted this and he went absolutely mad and said I had to come back in lunchtime and repaint the wall. So I turned up and he said, okay, well, it's good that you turned up. I wasn't really going to make you do it. But I was also thrown out of woodwork class because what I didn't realise, I had my piece of work in the jaws of the vice that I was lathing. But what I hadn't realised was that the wood had sunk below the wooden jaws of the vice. I was actually planing the jaws of the vice. So I'm completely hopeless at making things. But one thing I did make in the last year was I've made a 10-minute stand-up comedy routine on my sort of based on my experiences as a punk. Now looking back as a 50-year-old on being a punk and stuff. And I'll post the link to that. I performed it live once. And then the next day I recorded it on video. And the way it emerged was I was sat at a comedy gig of my favourite stand-up comedian, Stuart Lee. And I actually lost focus during his act because I started coming up with kind of lines for myself. And it tied into some sort of Twitter hashtags I'd been doing, sort of puns and stuff. And it just all came together. And on my tube journey home from the venue, I just wrote this routine out. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to type this up tomorrow, and if it still looks funny, I knew a place where I could go and try it out 3 days later, and I did. So it was over very quickly, my stand-up career, but it's not a bucket list, because I don't do bucket lists, but I've done it, so I'll share that with you. Number 8, what is your most recent personal project? Okay, this is quite hard for me because, well, first of all, it's unfinished. And it's a project, a writing project which I haven't started because I haven't found the right vehicle for it. But it's an inquiry into death. I've always been obsessed by dying, the fact of dying, and it's always very surprising to me that no one else seems to be, because they managed to keep it distant, which I've never been able to do. And this last year I've done an awful lot of writing, fiction writing, stories about death and ageing and all that sort of stuff. But I sort of reflected on it and I felt, well, the problem is if you write about it, because you are using sort of formal rules of grammar and language, that there's a certain intellectual detachment, inevitable, and that, you can still write powerful emotional things about death, but you're always going to be just a bit removed from the emotional intensity of trying to grapple with this. So I'm desperately casting around for trying to put together a project that goes deeper than anything I've done before. As I say, I'm barely off the launch pad with this one. And if that doesn't qualify, because I haven't really started it, my other sort of recent personal project is reggae music. So when I sort of was into music in my sort of teens and 20s, I bought a lot of reggae records because I was heavily into reggae. And then kind of reggae sort of got phased out both in my life but also in most people's life for hip-hop, which sort of swept it away for sort of, politicised and music. But I've recently come back to reggae and I've sort of undertaken the task of actually replacing all my original reggae records, albeit digitally. And of course, in the 70s and 80s, a lot of these records have not been digitised now, so they very, very slowly get released in digital form. I don't have a record player anymore, so I can't play records. I still have my records, but I can't play them. So I'm always on the lookout for sort of digital versions of reggae records that I had. I still listen to hip hop, but sort of reggae is sort of particularly roots reggae, which is the sort of spiritual side of reggae, has sort of re-emerged, and I'm very glad it has. Number 9. Tell us something you think about often. Okay, well, apart from death, which I've dealt with, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about my fantasy football team. What a waste of time and effort, really. But, every week I'm thinking about what moves can I make to improve my team. I'm in a league full of writers and artists, and let me tell you, it's very competitive. And basically, at this stage, sort of 2/3 of the way through the season, there's 2 of us who have sort of broken away at the top. And we keep swapping first and second every week. One of us does better than the other, and so I'm determined to win my league, which is really sad. But hey ho, it's one of the links to my childhood is sort of being sort of competitive sports, even though this is passively. Okay, and last question 10. Give us a specific favourite thing you have. Yes, I should have prepared this. Okay, just bear with me a minute. I'm going to go and see if I can find it. Hang on. So, I'm actually going to do 3 things. I don't know if you can see this. I might have to pull back a bit. Okay, so these are names of reggae bands. This is a t-shirt that recently came out, which is a poster of a gig. As you can see, it's got the date of it, Sunday, June the 12th. God knows what year it was. But there's a song by the British punk band The Clash from 1977 called White Man in Hammersmith Palais. Hammersmith Palais is a sort of concert venue. Used to be a sort of ballroom dancing club, and sort of punk swept in and sort of took it over unofficially. And the lyrics of the song, basically, the song is about sort of white kids sort of, you know, thinking they're into reggae because reggae and punk were sort of twin movements that sort of supported each other. But the white kids are totally sort of unappreciative of reggae, and it's affected reggae for the worst. It sort of made it sort of commercial and stuff. But basically, the song name checks all of these in the lyrics, all of these performers. So there's Dillinger, Delroy Wilson, Ken Booth, Leroy Smart. And it's a brilliant song. And that's the T-shirt of the song, the lyrics of the song, Man in Hammersmith Palais, but an actual, also real gig that they were quoting. So the next one's also a T-shirt, which, I got the wrong one. Never mind, I'll ignore that one. Okay, but the other thing, Ozzy Osbourne slippers. I used to work in a record shop, and it was twinned with a skateboard shop, and the skateboard company dealt with American shoe manufacturers, and there's one called DVS Shoe Company in America, and they made these sort of limited edition Ozzy slippers. So I don't know how much you can see. There's obviously the inverted cross with Ozzy's name in it. There's a picture of Ozzy inside. Then there were these sort of stickers, sort of pseudo tattoos. I've never worn these. I've never been an Ozzy Osbourne or heavy metal fan, but I just think they were great. I don't know what size they are, they'd fit me. I did always think, and that's the bag they came in, I did always think one day I'd put them on eBay and sell them, but I never have. So there you have it. That is my non-bookish things. Heavily dominated, if you're going to summarise, by death, music and T-shirts. Okay, till next time.